Welcome to Craps Hawaii. Today I'm going to take a break from teaching strategies and throwing the dice. I want to talk today more about etiquette. Etiquette on the table, when you get up to the table or when you're playing on the table. More about etiquette, because a lot of players who are on the table, especially those that are there, more serious than others. There's a lot of superstitions on the table, and they don't like to hear certain things being said and certain plays being made. So today I just want to talk a little about etiquette. First of all, the biggest rule is that when the dice is in play, and you can tell by the puck or the on and off button whether a dice is in play or not. And most of you who do already shoot craps, you all know, but sometimes there's beginners on the table and they don't know. When you see the button in the black up and it says off, that means the dice is not in play, and the dice would be in the middle of the table, right in front of the stick man. Okay, and at that point, people are making their bets and getting everything settled. Now, when the dice is in play and the stick man feeds the dice to the shooter and he rolls the dice and a point is made, you're going to see this puck with the white side up and it's going to say on. At that point, that means the dice is in play, the shooter is rolling for his points. Never, never, ever stick your hands inside the rail to pick up your money or place a bet or anything like that. Okay, that is one of the cardinal rules. Always watch where the dice are. The dice got taken back and it's in the middle of the table, and the stick man is taking control of the dice. He hasn't passed it out to the roller yet. Then at that time, if you need to place a bet or pick up your bet, that's fine. But once the dice is passed to the shooter, never ever stick your hands in the table. Because if that shooter rolls the dice and it hits your hand and it comes out a 7 and he loses his bet, he will be awfully upset. And not only him, probably a lot of players that were betting the pass line or any pass bets that they wanted to collect. Okay? Just because it hits your hand doesn't really mean that's why it came 7, but that's what happened, and people will be upset. So one of the cardinal rules is make sure you know when the dice is in play, and don't put your hands inside the rails at any time. Keep your hands back of the rail or at top of the rail, but back of the rail. Okay? Another thing that I really don't care for is that once a point is established and the game is being played and the shooter's rolling the dice and everybody's got their bets placed and just waiting for the point to be made, I really, really hate, and I think it's at etiquette point 2, that if you're a new player and you want to play on that table and the dice is in play, or at least the puck is showing and the shooter is still rolling, even when the stick man brings the dice back to the center of the table and the other players are collecting their money or placing their money, don't come in on the table and throw cash down on the table and tell the dealers, oh, give me some chips, I want to get into the game. That is poor etiquette. That is poor etiquette. Okay? Because that's like slowing up the game, and because of superstitious things, even I feel that way. You slow up the game, and the shooter had a good roll, that now it's like a new roll coming out. If the dice rolled 7, most people will be upset with you. Okay, so never buy into a game when the dice is being rolled already. Wait till the point is made or the shooter seven's out and the puck goes back off. Okay, then that's the time you buy in. Another thing too is a lot of times the table is maybe hot. So the table is pretty full. Everybody's being there. Everybody's placed their bets. They've been playing for a while. The table's going good. They're screaming. And so sometimes someone passing by or on another table says, hey, that table's doing well. So he wants to come to this table. Well, you know that when you get there, everybody's already playing, okay? Most tables, regulation size will hold 7 players on one side and 7 on the other. So that's a total of 14 people. But then again, sometimes you only have 6 on one side, but players will spread their arms out, they'll rest on the rails, so they're taking up maybe a spot and a half, and the next guy's taking us the other half of that spot. So there's not really room for you to get on that table. Don't squeeze on. If you miss that table and it was hot and it's playing, then just suck it up. Go look for another table, or wait till the table has room for you to get on the game. Don't just try to squeeze in, because that's upsetting for the players who are already there. So that's another thing, don't do. Also, if you already played on the table and it's time for you to place your bets, and the dice is in the middle of the table, but it's already a point, but the dice came back because the shooter rolled the dice, so the stickman brought the dice here, so it's being paid off or whatever. Now the stickman hands the dice out to the shooter. Don't go throwing late bets in. Okay, don't all of a sudden go, oh, give me the hard way. Oh, put me on the 6. Oh, give me the horn. The shooter is in a momentum, a way that he's already anticipating the dice. He has a way of throwing the dice. He wants to keep the momentum going. And things like that sometimes affects the shooter, because now he has to wait, because the stickman's going to pull the dice back so that you can make the bet, so that the dealers can book your bet for you. So that's another thing that you shouldn't do, is don't make late bets. Another thing, if you're in a game, and most crap players that been playing for a while, they know where their bets are according to the position of where they are. Whether they're next to the stick guy, or is at the corner, or at the end of the table. And that's because they've been playing long enough to know that if you look at the layout, the dealers will mark the position of the players with their bets according to the layout. So if you see this square right here on a 4, and the dealers on this side, the stickman's on this side, dealers on this side, and you're on the corner, they're going to put your bet up here in the corner. Okay, if you was up on the other side of the table, they're going to put you over here, or second in, or whatever. So if you're not sure, when you first get up to the table and you give your bets out to the dealer, watch where he marks you, so that you know that that's your spot and that's your bet. And then that way there's no controversy or arguments with other players saying, oh no, that was my bet. And you're going, no, that was my bet. Because that slows the game up again, and nobody wants an argument going on at the table, especially when the table is rolling good. Okay, so you don't want to do that. Make sure you know where your bets are. And if somebody wants to come in between you and the other person, tell them to move over so that you don't move, especially when the bets are laid out, so it doesn't confuse you or doesn't confuse the dealer as to where you went, because dealers pay off to the positions marked on the table according to the player's position at the rail. Okay, so another thing that I'd like to touch on, which may be not in the etiquette that I'm talking about, but you know, when you're throwing the dice, everyone's throwing to the end of the table, right? Both sides. If you're this side, you're throwing that side. If you're up there, you're throwing this side. And then people place their bets because they're on the pass line. And let's say they got this bet here, and another bet here, and over here, and maybe there's a quarter there, or 50. And then they put their odds. And then they're like this. Oh, give me $50 in odds. Give me 25 in odds. Oh, I'll take another 50 over here. Right? And this guy goes, give me a $200. Right? You know, there's not much room for the guy who's throwing the dice to have a clear runway. Okay? And you know, a lot of times the dice hits the wall, bounce back, hits the chips, 7 out. Okay, and for some reason, that's what usually happens. Not always the case, but a lot of times it does. So for some, when you're piled up like this, I know that you're placing your bets there, but you don't have to do that, right? You could come and say, okay, I want $25 in the bet. So put a green chip back there so that you cut that down. Okay, all these guys could put green chips back here, right? You could put green chip over here, right? This guy, he had $200 bet. He can put 2 black chips over here, right? So it's not as crowded, right? It's not as crowded because there's a lot of chips out there. There's not much space where the shooter can roll his dice and not hit the chips, you know. So that's just something to think about, that you don't have the lane for the dice being thrown blocked up by chips. In fact, you could actually, instead of playing here, I know most people play pass line, but you could put your bets up here on the place bets and leave it clear out here. Might be the same amount of odds that you're going to get, or if there is, they're very small. So just something to think about. Or if you're on the very corner, maybe you could just move it over, you know. Just things for you to think about on that thing, on the betting and crowding up the end of the table. And I think the last thing I would like to mention, and sometimes people don't realize that they're doing it, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen this. You're playing, you're rolling, you're having a good time, the table's going decent, and then there's somebody who's standing behind you. Not playing, but standing behind you. And they're looking at the game, and he's explaining to his friend about what's going on, what pays what, why the shooter's rolling the dice, what's the button for. So he's either explaining to his friend or his girlfriend, and you can hear him talking in the back of you, and you could be the shooter and listening to this. And then, you know, he mentions that, well, the way the roller does is he's shooting for his point, and if a 7 comes, then he'll lose that. Nobody wants to hear that if the 7 comes. Nobody wants to hear about a 7 when you're rolling up the dice, right? And you're a pass man. Nobody on the table wants to hear that. So if you want to explain these things about how to play craps, maybe talk a little softer so the people playing cannot hear you mentioning the word 7. When you're playing craps on the table, you're going to hear people say, well, you hope that other number don't come. But you rarely hear them say, oh, I hope the 7 don't come, right? So these are just small things about etiquette and when you play and how you should play and when to buy in and things like that. I feel that it's important to be respectful to other people playing. So etiquette wise, I just like to mention that, and just a short video on that. If anybody disagrees with me or has anything to add, put it in the comments and I'll respond. Hopefully you enjoyed this little talk about etiquette, and maybe people who never thought about it and see the video and realizes, oh, I never knew that. I should be, thinking about that before I get on the table. So anyway, thanks for watching. Just a short video on etiquette, and thanks for coming back to Craps Hawaii.